Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and comment your thoughts below, because what you're about to hear was never meant to leave those prison walls. The night it happened, the whole block went silent. Not the usual kind of silence, the kind that comes before a storm. Guards said it was routine lockdown, but everyone inside C Block knew something else was going on. The sound that started it all wasn't a scream or a fight. It was a tap. A faint, rhythmic tap-tap, pause, tap-tap-tap. At first, no one paid attention. In prison, you hear noises all the time. Pipes groan, steel doors clang, rats scrape through vents. But this was different. It had rhythm, meaning, pattern. By dawn, one inmate was dead. Another had disappeared, without a single door opening. The warden called it suicide. The inmates called it a message. They said the code came through the walls of cell 23, a cell that, according to the logs, had been empty for 2 weeks. No one should have been there. But when guards searched it, they found something carved into the paint above the bunk. We still talk. From that moment, fear spread faster than contraband. Every night, someone heard the same pattern. Tap, 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 pause. And every time it came, someone vanished or got shipped to solitary, never to return. But here's the thing. When investigators finally reviewed the security footage, they found something chilling. The tapping didn't just come from one cell. It echoed in sync across 3 different blocks. How could prisoners in separate wings, men who hadn't seen each other in months, be communicating perfectly through concrete and steel? That's when Officer Mitchell, the newest guard on C Block, decided to dig deeper. He was young, idealistic, and foolishly curious. On his 4th week, he started mapping the sound patterns, transcribing the taps. One night, around 3 a.m., he decoded a full sentence. 5 words that changed everything. You're next. We know you. The next morning, Mitchell didn't report for duty. His badge was found under cell 23's bunk, right below the carved words. And from that day, every prisoner and every guard knew one thing for sure. Whatever was happening inside those walls wasn't just a rumor. It was a system, a network, a code, a living language pulsing through concrete. And the men who used it, they controlled everything that happened behind those bars. But where did it come from? And how deep did the communication really go? That's what we're about to uncover. Because the story of the code doesn't begin with murder. It begins with a favor. A secret deal between 2 inmates that spiraled into one of the most dangerous underground networks in prison history. In every prison, there's a way things get done. Cigarettes, pills, phones, even revenge, all traded through whispers and trust. But in Iron Gate Penitentiary, trust was the rarest currency of all. It started with 2 men. Raymond Razor Cole, a lifer who ran the laundry block, and Luis Ortega, a quiet inmate doing 10 for armed robbery. They couldn't have been more different. Razor was loud, built like a tank, his arms covered in faded gang ink. Luis was soft-spoken, book-smart, the kind who watched more than he talked. Their paths crossed when Razor needed something impossible, a message delivered to Echo Block. Echo was a different wing, 2 floors down, sealed after a riot. No visits, no letters, no passing notes. The only thing connecting those cells was 6 inches of concrete. But Luis said he could do it. That night, Razor sat on his bunk, skeptical, as Luis counted the taps on the wall with his knuckles. 1, 2, 3. Pause. 1, 2. Pause. It sounded like random noise, until Razor realized it was repeating. Luis had created a rhythm. A code. What are you doing? Razor whispered. Luis smiled. Talking. 3 hours later, Razor got a reply from Echo Block. The voice on the other side was faint, just a whisper between taps. Message received. The next day, Razor's problem vanished, literally. The inmate he'd been beefing with in Echo turned up in the infirmary, jaw shattered, ribs cracked. No one saw who did it. That was the first time the code worked. Within weeks, word spread like wildfire. The taps became a new language, a way to send orders, warnings, even love letters between lockdown inmates. The guards thought it was superstition, but anyone who lived inside Iron Gate knew the truth. Every hit, every trade, every accident, it all started with a rhythm. And Luis Ortega became a legend. They called him the listener, the man who could hear a plan forming through stone. But with power came paranoia. The code was supposed to be secret, known only to a handful. Yet, somehow it spread to other wings. Different gangs started using it. Even guards began to suspect it wasn't just prisoners on the line. Razor started getting messages he never asked for, orders signed by someone who didn't exist. One night, he heard something that froze him cold, the same pattern that once saved his life. But this time, it spelled his name backwards. He ran to Luis's cell, panicking, but Luis wasn't there. His bunk was empty, and carved into the wall were 3 simple words. They found me. By morning, Luis Ortega was gone. No transfer papers, no release notice, nothing. Only the tapping remained, now faster, erratic, like someone trying to send a warning before time ran out. Razor knew one thing for sure. If the code could reach that far, it could reach him too. They said Luis Ortega vanished in the middle of the night. One moment, he was lying on his bunk. The next, his cell door was still locked. No signs of force, no trace of struggle. Only that message carved into the wall. They found me. For weeks, Razor couldn't sleep. Every sound felt like a whisper. Every tap from the walls felt personal. The other inmates noticed too. The rhythm had changed. It wasn't messages anymore. It was chaos. Rapid, uneven beats that sounded less like words and more like panic. But Razor wasn't the kind of man to scare easy. Before prison, he'd built his reputation on violence, loyalty, and never backing down. Yet even he couldn't shake the feeling that something was listening through the walls now. Not someone. He started tracing the code, block by block, try to find its origin. The problem was the deeper he went, the more the patterns overlapped, like a web connecting every wing, every cell, every inmate. That's when he found the map. It was hidden in the laundry, under a loose tile behind one of the dryers. A crude hand-drawn layout of iron gate, with tiny marks between walls and vents. Each line represented a pathway for sound, each at a contact point. Luis had drawn it himself. At the center of the map, one name stood out. Cell 23, Origin. That cell again. The same one where the first tapping had started. The same one the guard swore was empty. Razor knew it was suicide to go there. But curiosity was stronger than fear. So one night, during cleanup duty, he slipped away and made it to C Block. The lights were dim, the halls echoing with the hum of generators. When he reached cell 23, he froze. The door was slightly open. Not much, just enough to make him wonder if someone wanted him to come in. He pushed it. The hinges creaked. The smell hit him first. Rust, mold, something metallic. Inside, the cell looked like any other, except for the walls. They were covered in symbols. Rows and rows of marks. Tiny carved dots and lines, stretching from floor to ceiling. Razor traced one with his finger. It wasn't random. It was the code. Hundreds of messages layered over each other, like the cell itself was keeping records. Then he saw it, near the bottom bunk, a message carved deeper than the rest, as if by a desperate hand. Don't answer the next tap. He barely had time to process it when tap, 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 pause. The code. The same rhythm that started everything. He held his breath, backing away from the wall. The tapping got louder, faster. Then it stopped, and the voice came. A whisper, faint but clear. We told you not to listen. Razor ran. He didn't stop until he reached the kitchen block, panting, drenched in sweat. No one believed him. Some said he was hearing things, losing his mind. Others swore they'd heard the same tapping the night before. But Razor knew better. The code wasn't just a means of communication anymore. It was a weapon, and whoever or whatever was behind it had just marked him next. For 3 days after that night, Razor barely spoke. He stayed in his cell, eyes fixed on the wall, waiting for another tap that never came. But silence in Iron Gate was rarely mercy. It was a countdown. Then, on the 4th night, something new started. Not a tap, a hum, low, faint, vibrating through the pipes like an underground current. The old-timers called it the network waking up. To Razor, it sounded like the walls themselves were breathing. The next morning, a note appeared under his cell door, a strip of cloth from a prison uniform. with a single line scrawled in pencil. Meet in the chapel. Noon. Come alone. He went. The chapel was empty, the stained glass cracked and colorless from years of neglect. In the back pew sat Andre Voss, an older inmate with gray hair and a scar running from his temple to his jaw. Voss had been inside longer than most guards had worked there. He was the kind of man everyone respected or feared. I heard you've been asking questions, Voss said without looking up. I'm looking for Ortega, Razor replied. Voss smirked. Aren't we all? He motioned Razor closer, then pulled something from under the pew, a piece of copper wire, short and worn. This, Voss said, is how the code started. Ortega didn't invent it. He revived it. He explained that long before Razor arrived, during the 1989 lockdown, inmates discovered that sound traveled through the prison's old plumbing system. They used the pipes like telephone wires, building an entire underground communication grid. But after a violent riot, the guards shut it down and sealed the connecting vents. Or so they thought. Ortega found a way to restart it, not just through pipes, but through the very structure of the prison. Concrete walls, metal beams, even the floor panels, all of them carried faint vibrations. He used frequency patterns instead of simple taps, allowing entire messages to travel from one block to another undetected. He called it the network, Voss said. It wasn't just communication. It was control, a system that ran everything from drug trades to hit orders and maybe even the guards. Razor frowned. Guards? Voss nodded. Some of them were in on it. Ortega made deals. Information for favors. And when someone wanted out, he made sure they disappeared quietly. No blood. No mess. Just gone. Razor felt his chest tighten. Then what happened to him? Voss looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. He went too far. Someone higher up didn't like how much he knew. Before Razor could ask who, a sharp clang echoed down the hall, the sound of a cell gate slamming shut. Then came the taps. Dozens of them. Fast. Urgent. All around the chapel. Voss stood abruptly. They know we're talking, he hissed. The lights flickered. Razor's heart pounded. Who knows? Voss didn't answer. He grabbed Razor's arm and shoved the copper wire into his hand. You want to live? Take this. Follow the frequency. And whatever you do, don't trust the guards. Then the alarms blared. By the time officers flooded the chapel, Voss was gone. No trace, no witness, no explanation. All Razor had left was the wire and a whisper that seemed to echo from inside the walls themselves. You're part of it now. That night, Razor lay awake, the copper wire clenched in his fist. Every creak, every whisper of metal sent a jolt through his chest. Sleep didn't exist anymore. Not an iron gate. Not after what he'd seen. When the lights went out, he decided to test the wire. He wrapped one end around a loose screw near the vent and pressed the other to the wall. At first, nothing. Just the deep hum of the prison settling into its midnight rhythm. But then a pulse. Soft. Repeating. Too deliberate to be random. He listened. The frequency wasn't tapping anymore. It was modulation. Waves. The kind you'd hear if you tuned an old radio, just right. He remembered Ortega's map. Every dot. Every connection. It wasn't just a layout. It was a blueprint for transmission. Razor realized he wasn't just listening to inmates. He was intercepting a live network. The pattern repeated 3 times before he could decipher it. The message was simple, yet horrifying. We see you. Stop tracing. His stomach dropped. Whoever was behind the network wasn't just sending orders. They were monitoring every signal that passed through it. The next morning, Razor's cellmate, Benny, didn't wake up. No marks. No struggle. Just cold. Dead. The guard said, natural causes, but Razor knew better. Benny had been asking questions too, about Voss, about Ortega, about the code. Fear spread fast. Whole blocks refused to tap. Men who once ruled the yard now whispered like ghosts. But Razor couldn't stop. He wired the copper through his vent, tracing it across the cell's frame. Every night, he'd listen, each frequency a different voice, a different cell. Some messages were simple trades or threats. Others sounded encrypted, until one night, he caught something different. A voice. Not static. Not vibration. A clear, human voice, distorted but calm. Cell 23. Basement level. You're almost there. Razor froze. Basement level? There was no basement. At least, not one on the map. He followed the next clue 2 days later when a guard, Officer Ramos, slipped him a folded paper during mealtime. No words, just a drawn circle with 3 lines running through it. Razor recognized it instantly. It was the same symbol carved into the wall of cell 23. That night, when the block went dark, he went hunting. He moved silently through the corridors, following the faint hum from the copper wire coiled around his wrist. It led him to a restricted door marked maintenance access. The lock was old, easy to pry open. Beyond it, stairs spiraled down into darkness. The air was damp, the sound of dripping water echoing from somewhere below. And then he saw them, dozens of old cells, abandoned since the '80s riot. The walls were carved with the same code marks, deeper, older, layers upon layers of communication, like the prison had been alive for decades. Then he noticed something glowing faintly at the end of the corridor, a small green light. He approached slowly, heart pounding. It was an intercom, the old kind, wired into the wall. Static buzzed faintly through it. He hesitated, then pressed the button. "Ortega," he whispered. The static cleared, and a voice came through, calm, tired, unmistakable. "You shouldn't have followed it, Razor." His blood ran cold. "Where are you?" he asked. The voice laughed softly. "Still here? The network never dies." Then the intercom clicked off, leaving Razor alone in the dark with the hum of the walls closing in around him. And as he turned to leave, he saw something etched beside the intercom. Fresh marks, not old ones. Words scratched into the concrete only hours ago. "The next message is for you." Razor didn't move for nearly a minute. The words on the wall, "The next message is for you," seemed to throb in the low green light, each letter carved deep, deliberate, personal. He forced himself to breathe, to think. The intercom was silent now, but the walls weren't. The hum had changed again, deeper, steadier, like a pulse echoing from somewhere underground. Razor pressed his ear to the concrete. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap, tap. The rhythm was slower this time, almost careful. He grabbed the copper wire and began decoding, one beat at a time. When he finished, the message sent chills through him. "Follow the light. They're watching." He looked around. The corridor stretched ahead, pitch black except for a faint flicker at the far end, a single bulb swaying gently from a wire. Every instinct told him to go back, but something stronger pulled him forward. The deeper he went, the stronger the hum became. It wasn't just sound now, it was vibration. He could feel it through his chest, through the floor, through the air. It was like the prison itself was speaking. Halfway down the corridor, he saw the walls. They were covered in carvings, not words, not code, but names. Hundreds of them. Every inmate who'd ever vanished from Iron Gate. Some names were decades old, others recent. Near the bottom, one name stopped him cold. R. Cole. His own. Freshly scratched into the wall. He stumbled back, heart hammering. Then the light ahead flickered twice and went out. Darkness swallowed everything. He turned, running back the way he came, but the corridor seemed to stretch longer than before. The hum grew louder, so loud it vibrated in his bones. The taps returned, rapid, overlapping, hundreds of them, like 1,000 conversations happening at once. And then silence. A voice whispered behind him. "Now you understand." He spun around. No one. Only the faint shape of the intercom glowing again in the dark. He approached it slowly, the wire still wrapped around his hand. The voice came again, calm and low, unmistakable. "The code isn't just messages. It's memory." Static flared. "Every sound you've heard. The walls recorded it. Every deal, every order, every secret. The prison listens, Razor. Always has." He swallowed hard. "What do you want from me?" The voice paused, then answered. "You're the last one who can shut it down." Razor shook his head. "I don't even know how." "Find the main line," the voice interrupted. "Under cell 23. Cut it. Before they do." "Before who does?" Razor shouted. The intercom crackled. Then faintly, "The ones who built it." And the line went dead. Above him, the alarm started blaring. Someone had triggered lockdown. Razor ran. Through the corridor, up the stairs, his hands shaking as he clutched the copper wire. As he reached the main level, red lights flooded the hallway. Guards shouted, boots thundered, but none of them were coming for him. They were heading for cell 23. He followed, hiding in shadows. From the catwalk above, he saw them. 3 men in black uniforms, not correctional officers. No badges. No names. Moving like they knew exactly where to go. They opened the cell and started drilling into the floor. That's when Razor realized the truth. The code wasn't a secret anymore. Someone wanted it buried, for good. But if the voice was right, cutting the main line could mean one of two things: ending the network forever or unleashing whatever it had been holding back all these years. As the drill whined and the concrete cracked open, Razor made his choice. He tightened the copper wire around his fist and stepped out of the shadows. The hallway was chaos. Sirens wailed, red lights pulsed across the concrete, and the air buzzed with that same low frequency, the heartbeat of Iron Gate itself. Razor's shadow flickered against the walls as he stepped forward, the copper wire glinting in his hand like a weapon, like fate. The 3 men in black uniforms froze when they saw him. They weren't guards, not by the way they moved, too precise, too calm. One of them turned, his voice steady. "Step away, inmate. You don't belong here." Razor didn't flinch. "Neither do you." Behind them, the floor was open, a deep pit under cell 23, cables running through the foundation like veins. In the center was a single steel conduit wrapped in insulation. It wasn't plumbing. It was the main line, the core of the network. Razor could hear it humming, alive, carrying thousands of unseen messages. Whispers, orders, memories. The voice from the intercom had been right. Iron Gate wasn't just a prison. It was a machine that listened. The lead operative raised his hand. "You have no idea what this is. Walk away." Razor took another step. "Then tell me." The man sighed. The system was built during the Cold War, an experiment in acoustic surveillance. The inmates were never supposed to know, but they adapted it, turned it into their own network. Ortega just made it stronger. Razor's pulse thudded. "You killed him, didn't you?" The operative didn't answer. He just nodded to the others. "Shut it down." They lifted a small control unit from their bag. Military-grade hardware, glowing red. The moment they connected it, the hum on the floor turned violent, like the whole prison was trembling from the inside. The walls began to vibrate. The pipes screamed. From every direction, the code erupted. Tap, 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 pause. Thousands of cells answering back at once like the building was fighting back. Razor lunged forward, grabbing the wire and slamming it into the exposed conduit. Sparks exploded, lighting the room in white and gold. The operative shouted, but the sound was drowned in the roar of static flooding the walls. And then he heard the voice again. "You found it. Now finish it." He wrapped the copper wire tighter, his hands burning, and ripped it free. The hum stopped. For a moment, there was nothing. No alarms, no shouts, no sound at all. Just the eerie quiet of something ancient finally going still. Then, boom, a blinding flash tore through the floor. The operatives vanished in the blast. Razor was thrown back, hitting the wall hard. Concrete dust filled the air. He coughed, his ears ringing, his vision fading. Through the haze, he saw the conduit split open. Inside wasn't wire, it was bone. Hundreds of tiny fragments embedded in the concrete, like the structure itself was built from the bodies of the ones who vanished. And just before he blacked out, he saw one final message burn across the wall in flickering light. Impossible, yet there. "We still talk." When Razor woke, it was morning. The cell was quiet, too quiet. No alarms, no guards, just silence. He stumbled to the bars and looked out. C block was empty. Every cell, every bunk abandoned. The only thing left was the faint echo of his own breathing. Then tap, tap, pause, tap. It came from behind him, from the wall. He turned slowly, staring at the concrete. The same words he'd seen on that first day were there again, fresh, clean, new. "We still talk." And beneath it, a second line. "Now you do too." Razor laughed, quiet, broken, disbelieving. The sound bounced off the walls, echoing endlessly, as if the prison itself was laughing back. Outside, Iron Gate Penitentiary stood silent. But inside the walls, the code lived on. Clapperboard outro. If you made it this far, you've heard the whispers too. Maybe it's just a story, or maybe the walls really do remember. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe prisoners can still talk through walls? Hit that like button, subscribe for more untold prison stories, and share this video if you felt the chills. Because next time, we might decode another secret that was never meant to be heard. Would you like me to create 10 ultra-realistic image prompts for Chapter 1 to visualize each key scene? Chapter 7, The Last Message. The morning count echoed through the tier. The same routine, the same clang of boots. But this time, there was no response from Cell 4C. The guard peered inside and froze. Reyes was slumped against the wall, eyes open, lifeless, a single strip of toilet paper clenched in his hand. On it, faint letters pressed into the damp surface spelled out. They heard U.S. The rumor spread like wildfire. Some said Reyes took his own life out of guilt. Others whispered that someone silenced him to keep the code secret. But one thing was clear, whatever message he sent, it reached beyond those walls. In the following weeks, COs found more strange notes tucked inside vent grills and behind light fixtures. Some carried warnings, others maps, and one said, "Don't listen through the walls." Jax, now in solitary, could hear faint taps from other cells. The rhythm was off, unfamiliar, almost mocking. He pressed his ear against the wall. 3 taps, a pause, then 2, then silence. He never heard Reyes' voice again. But the code lived on, passed through every block, every new inmate, every whisper in the dark. And to this day, no one knows how far it reached or what the final message meant. If you made it this far, you just walked through the walls of one of the most chilling prison mysteries ever told. The story of the code still echoes across real prison systems today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you want more real-life stories from inside the world's most dangerous prisons. Drop a comment below. What do you think the final message meant? Because sometimes the truth doesn't escape the walls, it hides inside them.